Hey everyone, welcome to Moving to Georgia. Another week here, bringing you all the information that you need to know about what's happening in the real estate market. Um, I don't know if y'all have seen the headlines today, but I feel like I have to say or address a nearby town that I serve in Barrow County, Winder, Georgia. You may have seen the news today that there was a school shooting at Appalachian High School, and just want to send our condolences, thoughts, and prayers. And our area community is just really rattled by this. I'm sure you're going to see it all over the news and news stories, Facebook, all the things, but it's just really shocking. As a former teacher, high school teacher, it's very, very scary. And so Appalachian High School and the town of Winder is in our prayers. So keep them in your prayers as well. And I don't know, we got to get out of this mess. So, but today we are going to be talking about everything that is happening currently in the real estate market here in the metro Atlanta area of Georgia, and kind of digging into the data to see, are we headed for a crash? And is this something that you should be concerned about? And what's ahead in 2025? Feels kind of crazy to think that we're already talking or looking ahead to 2025. On a better note here today, I don't know if any of y'all are watching our local, but man, the weather is just awesome. It's like someone on Labor Day flipped a switch and said, it's fall. And so there's a nice breeze out, a little bit stronger than normal. You've got leaves falling from the trees, and it was in the mid 70s today, just really, really nice. In the low 60s this morning, waking up, and gosh, it just felt like fall. So very excited about the weather ahead. Personally, for me, it's my favorite time of year. I'm curious, what is your favorite time of year? Let me know in the comments. If you are joining us, let me know where you're watching from. Say hello in the comments so that we know who is out there. If you have any questions or comments about anything, go ahead and drop those in the chat as well. I'd love to get your thoughts and opinions as we discuss things today and spend some time with each other. So, one thing that we're super thankful for here in my household is that football is back. I don't know if y'all are some big football fans, but we are, and it's just constant football all the time. And I've recently taken up the hobby of needle pointing, so it's really fun to sit there and needle point and have football on in the background. Okay, enough about the weather and needle pointing. Let's talk what is happening in the real estate market. Oh, Darla, over 100 degrees in California. That is unbearable. That would be unbearable. I had an email from a California client. Oh, that was you, Darla, right? Yes, you emailed me today, and you mentioned about rolling blackouts. And that just took me by surprise, because that is not a thing here. The only time that we lose power here in Georgia is whenever there's thunderstorms that come through and a tree falls onto the power lines, and that's how we lose power. We do have a ton of above ground power lines here in Georgia. Occasionally in some areas you'll have underground power lines, but we're a little bit antiquated here. And all these cities and all these great areas and growth and development weren't necessarily master planned. So we still have a lot of power lines with a lot of wires and poles, and our trees, they're older. So a big strong wind comes through and knocks it down and knocks out the power. But the electric companies get it up and running really, really quickly. Welcome, Lone One. Thanks for joining. I appreciate your support and being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into what's happening in the real estate market. First, let's just kind of look at what's happening nationally. I think that's important for us to kind of know. And one thing you might be seeing headlines of, a lot of homes staying on the market for longer, prices coming down. Just about every single client that I talked to recently, we talk about what's happening, and especially what's going on with prices, because that's important to know. So this was a great kind of screenshot that came from a Redfin or Zillow article. But here are some indicators of home buying demand and activity. And this is looking at across the country. So not just locally here in Georgia, but you'll see here that this chart says that the daily average of a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is at the end of August was 6.37%. And if you look at year over year, that is down from almost a full percentage point from 7% last year. So thank goodness we are finally starting to see some relief in mortgage rates. And we're going to go into this a little bit deeper and kind of show you where things are going and why now or may not now be the right time to make a move. So mortgage rates are down. If you look at the weekly average fixed mortgage rate, that's also down. And that's essentially the same thing, right? I don't know why they broke that out into two different things. But here you'll see that mortgage purchase applications are down 9%. So this is something that is a little bit surprising to me. And I've seen this here locally in our area, which is even though mortgage interest rates have come down, we're not seeing a huge surge in buyer activity yet. So, and this is indicated by across the country as a whole that you would think that as mortgage rates start to come down, you would see an uptick in interest rates, or not interest rates, an uptick in mortgage applications, thinking that more people could now either afford a house or say, yes, it's the relief that we've been waiting for. Let's go buy a house. And that's not showing up just yet. Touring activity. So we are seeing an increase up 6% from the start of the year. At this time last year, it was up 2% from the start of 2023. So even though touring activity is up, my interpretation of this is that buyers now have longer to decide which house they want to buy. And so instead of seeing 3 or 4 houses, you now have the luxury of seeing 7, 8 houses before you can decide which one that you want to buy. So that to me is an indicator that homes are not flying off the market. And we're going to take a closer look at that, especially here locally, to see what's happening. All right, so let's take a look. All right, we talked about how mortgage rates are declining. This is a great thing, right? So I am seeing some well-qualified buyers get really low sixes, even a 5.99%. So that is a great thing. And we're going to talk about more about where mortgage rates are heading and why you should be paying attention to this. So as you can see, this is the trend line for mortgage rates and the projections. And these are many different financial institutions that are giving their input, their economists, on where they're projecting things to go. And this is stretching all the way out through the end of 2025 through fourth quarter. And here's what you can see. They are going to be slowly trickling down. And yet, if we kind of look over here, we are still kind of hovering towards the bottom of the sixes, high fives into next year. So they're going to continue to come down, but just not a drastic amount, right? So we're not going to get down into the low fives or the low fours or mid fours, high fours, any fours. I don't think that's happening at all next year, but we will see. Okay, so all right, let's take a look at month supply of inventory. And this is really, really important. And what this means, and this is a lot of good data that real estate agents look at. When we talk about month supply of inventory, this gives us an idea of how the market is doing overall as a whole in determining whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. You can kind of see that gray bar in between. Historically, they've said a balanced market is between 5 to 7 months supply of inventory, meaning if no new buyers were to enter the market, based on the number of houses for sale currently, in a balanced market, it would take 5 full months to sell all of that inventory. You can see that we've been in the green. We've been in a strong seller's market, meaning that there's less than 5 months supply of inventory. That means that we've had way more buyers than we've had sellers, and sellers have been sitting pretty for the past couple of years, well, a long couple of years, and have been able to dictate essentially the market and get a strong demand and price for their house. But you can see that's changing. We're inching back up to that balanced market. We haven't really had a balanced market since, what is that, like 2014 maybe? So the good thing is that we're getting more and more supply. And we are seeing that show up here locally as well. So I'm going to share with you, get into some of the local stuff now, because this is what you care about. Because hopefully if you're watching this, you're thinking about making a move to Georgia. And so I want you to know that if you're going to move here, this is what you would need to know. So, all right, you should be seeing this screen now. Now I've got lots of different cities pulled up here. Let's do this. Okay, so on the screen here, I've got Cumming, Alpharetta, and Gainesville. And those are 3 really good places that we can kind of pinpoint and look and compare the data. But let's go to month supply. So if we look at month supply, you'll see that Cumming in the yellow is sitting at 3.3 month supply of inventory. This is up 100% compared to this time last year, meaning that we have twice as many houses for sale this time this year than we did last year. So that's a great thing for buyers, meaning that you have more time, more houses to choose from. Alpharetta is a 3-month supply of inventory, and Gainesville is a little bit higher. We got almost a 4.5 month supply of inventory here in Gainesville. Now let's take a look at new listings. So comparing this again, year over year, looking at data ending in August, Cumming's inventory is up almost 10%. Alpharetta's inventory is up 37% compared to this time last year. And Gainesville is up 36%. So this means for you as buyers, you have more houses to choose from, which is great. So right now, having more houses to choose from is a bad thing for sellers because there's more competition. Instead of your house being one of a few homes that are available that fit a buyer's needs, now they have 10 or 12 houses that they can go see that might be a good fit for what they're looking for. So let's take a look at how that is impacting prices. So if we go back here, let's look at sales price. All right, so you see in Cumming, the median sales price is down 3.5% compared to where it was this time last year. Now, again, we got to take a look at this as a whole because we're looking at 1 month, right? But the average or the median sales price in Cumming is $579,000. In Alpharetta, it's $717,000, and their median sales price is up 5.5% over last year. In Gainesville at $400,000, pretty much even compared to last year. And so the good thing is that we're not seeing these huge dramatic shifts or jump in prices that we've seen over the past couple of years, year over year, but rather things are just kind of steadying out again. Now, let's look at closed sales. So you'll see in these graphs, and I want to see if we can go to 2 years. No, it won't let me. Okay. Look at 2023 and 2024. Notice how it does like a hump up and down, up and down, up and down. This is very, very normal for a real estate market. This is our normal seasonality. These peaks here, this is our spring market. April, May, June. Usually things peak in June and then they slowly taper off. And your winter months, usually there's a dip, right? Who wants to move during the holidays? Not a lot of people, but it's a great time to buy a house because you can usually get a deal around that time period. And then you see things start to pick back up again and then slow back down. So whatever you see these headlines right now that say home sales are falling and a record low number of houses selling, we are returning to a normal market, which we have not had since like 2018. So just know there's a little bit of a spin factoring in there. And this is not a bad thing. This is actually a great thing. We want the market to return to normal because being a buyer and a seller, this gives us more predictability and more stability in the real estate market, which we can all agree that's what we need, right? Okay, so here's something that is super important for you to know. Days on market. This is how long, once a house is listed to once it goes under contract and closes, how long is it spending on the market? And you'll see here that Cumming, Alpharetta, and Gainesville are all up, meaning houses are taking longer to sell. When we compare year over year, in Cumming, it's taking 18 days on average to sell a house. Alpharetta is 14, and Gainesville is a full 30 days on the market. So again, for you as a buyer, it means that you have a little bit of longer opportunity to look at houses on the market before having to swipe up a house right away. I'm going to put a little asterisk here, though, because this doesn't mean that if a great house comes on the market that you shouldn't act fast, because I'm still seeing lots of feedback from agents where houses are going for multiple offers in certain situations, in certain pockets. Again, when it's a great priced house in good condition and it's been renovated, those houses are selling quickly. So keep that in mind. Now, let's go look at percentage of original list price. And I say original because we have two different stats here in our MLS system. We can look at the percent of list price. That's what did it sell for when it closed versus what the price was. The percent of original list price, this gives you where did they originally price the house when they first came on the market, and then where did it end up selling. So this is like after a price drop, what percentage of that original number did they get? And across the border here, across all three kind of markets, we are seeing that homes are selling for anywhere between 94, 95% in Gainesville of original list price to incoming 96% and 97% in Alpharetta. For you as a buyer, this is great information to have because this kind of gives you an insight into what you can anticipate that you can negotiate off of a home whenever you are considering a house going under contract. So if the house was priced at $500 and they dropped it to $475, we can go back and see, okay, if homes are selling for on average incoming for, what is that, 96% of original list price, that price drop may be the thing that is needed to get the house under contract, and the sellers may not be willing to negotiate a whole lot more. This is just something that we have that we can take a look at and evaluate the data and see what is happening across the market. We recently had some clients that we just got under contract on a house that, for whatever reason, this seller was having to sell the house based off of a job relocation. And so they wanted to be closer to their job, essentially a new construction house. We were able to get this house under contract for less than what these buyers paid for the house a year ago. Now, I hear myself saying that, and I can hear you hearing that, saying like, well, wait, does that mean that the market is crashing? No, we just took advantage of a really great time in the real estate market right now, where there's more homes for sale, houses are spending longer on the market, and some people just don't have the luxury of waiting and waiting and waiting for the right buyer to come along. So the real estate market right now presents a wealth of opportunities. And I fear that this might be short-lived. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, but I want to make sure that I answer some of your questions. So if you're just joining us, hello, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what questions you have. Drop them in the comments below. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know. I'd like to hear that too. So let's see here. CB says, I've been thinking about buying versus building. Do you know a good average for Georgia build costs? Examples, 200 a square foot. I would say that you can find a builder that can build around 225 a square foot. And the challenge is finding the land. It's a challenge. So one thing that's important to note is that a lot of land here that is good to build on is being built up or snatched up by builders here who are building these spec houses. I had a great couple in from California this past weekend, and they were driving around and they're like, hey, we saw these gorgeous, beautifully new construction homes that look exactly what we're looking for. and they're just kind of like on the side of the road. They're not in a neighborhood. So those are cheaper than like houses in a neighborhood, right? And I was like, well, I could see where you would think that, but no. Those homes are just as expensive as a house in a neighborhood with amenities. And the reason for that is that there's not a whole lot left of land to build on. So people want to have a house on some land, usually without an HOA, because they want to be able to do whatever they want to do. And they value that convenience of where that home is located. So it's not unusual to see 3 or 4 new construction homes plop down on a road that's somewhat kind of busy, and you have, a few houses down or a little bit down the road, just regular, normal houses. And I say this because these are typically like $900,000 plus, kind of like modern farmhouse built houses. So you have a lot of builders that are buying up these types of properties and putting these spec houses down because a buyer will buy this. There's a demand for it. So what that means for you is that when trying to find land, typically you're either having to go really far out, or the lots that are available for a reason. Either the cost to build on that land is expensive. Maybe it's a basement style, or it's a basement lot with a steep grade and it needs a lot of retention walls and backfilling and, a lot of pier supports and stuff like that, which just to get to the actual house building part is very expensive. It could be specialized septic system, difficulty in getting water, all those types of things. So my caveat to that is to just know that it might be a little bit harder to find the land, and to approach it with a little extra layer of caution, because what's out there usually is still out there for a reason. There's a reason why a builder hasn't snatched it up to build a spec house. So good question. Another great question is, Gainesville is where I'm looking. They have a lot of potential growth. It seems like from outside looking in. 100% agree with you. So I live here in Gainesville. My husband and I have been here now for 10 years. We moved up here originally for his job, and I was still a teacher at that time. And I'll be honest with y'all, when we moved to Gainesville, there was a certain road that we came into town on, or we drove down, and it did not give the prettiest picture of what Gainesville was. And I looked at my husband and I was like, where are we moving? Because this is not exciting. And yeah, I just had like one of those like, oh shit moments. Like, what have we done? And then it was a little while later, we drove to another part of town. I was like, okay, this is pretty. This has all the stores and the restaurants and the things that I can get excited about. And then there's the view in the background of the mountains. Okay, this is a better picture of what it looks like. And yet at the time, Gainesville was still kind of small, but yet we were still close to a lot of other cities. So if I wanted to get in some really good shopping or really great restaurants, I could drive 30 minutes away and, have everything at my fingertips. The last couple of years, Gainesville has spent a lot of money into attracting and developing the downtown area. And I speak about this a lot in the videos, but it really has gotten really great. So every time you go downtown now, there's people eating outside on the sidewalks. There's people walking around with drinks and their dogs, and they're socializing because there's so many great restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and they're continuing to build there. They just recently opened up a great Courtyard Marriott with a rooftop bar. There is another recently announced huge hotel that's coming to downtown. And so, yeah, just a lot of great development happening in Gainesville. My agent partner and I were laughing because in a local Facebook group for Alpharetta moms, there was someone that was moving from relocating from out of state, and they made a post and they said, hey, my husband can either live or work in the Dahlonega location or Gainesville. Now, Dahlonega is a cute little mountain town that's probably 45 minutes north of Cumming. And It's a really small mountain town. And a lot of people, a lot of moms in this group, I say moms, anyone can be part of this group, but a lot of people were saying, like, oh gosh, I would never live in Gainesville. Don't move there. Just like really turning their nose up at it. And we were like, you would rather live in Dahlonega versus Gainesville. Don't get me wrong, Dahlonega is cute. It's fun to go to for the day, but you're in a small mountain town, whereas Gainesville has a lot more, and it's gotten so much better over the years. Not that it was ever bad, but sometimes, people can turn their nose up at certain areas or zip code, but you know what? That's okay, right? They can stay over there and let me have Gainesville and let me promote Gainesville to all of y'all. So yes, I love Gainesville. Lots of great things happening here. And definitely it's something that you should put on your list, because you can get a really great house here, way more house for your money than you can get over in Cumming and Alpharetta. I told somebody else that if you just give it another 10 years, and I think Gainesville is going to be the new Cumming. In fact, my husband does not like all the growth and development that's happening here. And he's like, when we moved here, there wasn't all this traffic. And, like an old boomer that he's not, which some of y'all watching might be in the boomer category, but you know how it is. A lot of, I saw a comment on a video recently that a viewer said, I think it was like the Loganville, Grayson area. And they're like, well, don't move here because locals don't want you to come here. And they're tired of all the development and the traffic and everything. And my response back to that was just, that's how locals, I think, here just react to everything when it comes to their town growing and developing. They're going to complain about it and they're going to whine about it. And yet nothing's going to change because it's still going to happen. So don't let that deter you. Oh, okay. You own a rental in Dahlonega. So you might have a unique perspective. Wondering what you would say comparing Dahlonega to Gainesville. At the beginning of the show, Anupam said, am I seeing similar price situations across Gwinnett County, or is it different? For example, buyer's market in Lawrenceville and seller's market in Beaufort. So let's take a look at the data, and we're going to discover this together. So I'm going to go back to our market stats here, so y'all can see that at home. Let me jump back over there. All right, so we wanted to compare Lawrenceville to Beaufort. Let me type Lawrenceville, Beaufort. Okay, so you kind of see that the percentage of original price, on average, it's pretty much the same between Lawrenceville and Beaufort. Let's look at month supply. Lawrenceville, a little bit less. Let's look at sales price. Oh, okay. So Beaufort is more expensive, which is, I would expect that. And that is because Beaufort typically has better school districts than Lawrenceville does, more newer communities. Some areas of Lawrenceville can be very dated and sometimes a little bit run down, sometimes not. And yet the home price in Lawrenceville is up compared to last year. When we look at days on the market, okay, interesting. Beaufort is a little bit longer days on the market. I would imagine that has to do with the price point. So to answer your question, really when you're looking at Lawrenceville and Beaufort, Beaufort's more expensive. Let's look at homes for sale. All right, Lawrenceville has way more homes for sale than Beaufort. And I think that's indicative of the location, the school district that you have there, and just the sheer number of homes there for sale. So in my opinion, Beaufort is more of a seller's market than Lawrenceville. And you have a lot more first-time home buyer houses in the Lawrenceville area. A little bit more diversity in terms of houses and types of prices and neighborhoods that you can get in Lawrenceville versus Beaufort doesn't have quite that big swing that Lawrenceville has. So Um, to answer your question, hopefully that gives you some good data to look at, but um, it is very pocket specific in the metro Atlanta area to what you can expect. So, one of the things when you are a private client of ours, we are going to get together and have a good strategy session. We're going to look at everything together and kind of determine what area fits your needs the best, what has the most amount of inventory that fits everything that you're looking for, and what's a realistic price point we can expect to land in those areas, and kind of get the information from you to decide which way you want to go. There is plenty of opportunity right now to get a really great deal in this real estate market. We had a client recently go under contract, and we got their appraisal back. And this home appraised for $35,000 more than what they were currently under contract for. And again, this was the house that was on the market for about 30 days. So, in my opinion, that 30-day mark is kind of the sweet spot to get sellers and have a good negotiation with them. Lone One asks, I'm curious, what areas have single-story ranch-style homes? Good question. So, one of the things that I've learned is that in Florida, single-story ranch-style homes are very prevalent, right? I mean, you can throw a rock and hit one, I guess because of the hurricanes and stuff. However, here in Georgia, especially here in the metro Atlanta area, it is very, very common, more common to have two-story homes versus ranch-style homes. And the reason for that is that weather-wise, it doesn't matter if it's a two-story or a one-story. It doesn't add any additional cost to make it extra safe to go up. We don't really have the weather events that you have to worry about down in Florida. And we have more two-story homes because when it comes to new construction, it is cheaper for a builder to go up than go out. And so you can build more house on a smaller land footprint than you can if you had to take that same square footage and put it on a ranch. You would need a bigger, wider lot. So that is something to know. And that is why you see more two-story homes here versus ranch-style houses. That sounded very country. Ranch-style houses. If you go into new construction communities, you will see that most builders will build a ranch and they'll build a two-story home. But I would say, if I was just estimate, 85% of the houses that they're going to build in the neighborhood are going to be two-story homes. And then the other 15%, those ranch-style houses. That is why if you have a ranch-style house and you are selling it, it's good because there's not a whole lot of competition out there. I mean, you're going to have some, but it's good. It's a good thing to have. What is a unicorn here is a ranch on a basement. And this is a great, great house for people as they get a little bit older, multi-generational family living. Having a ranch on a basement is really, really nice. And we do have them. They are here in the metro Atlanta area. It's just not very many. And I say not very many, I would say, gosh, I don't know. I'm making this up. 5%, if even that. I would say 5% of basement homes would be ranch on basements. So it's a really great thing to have, and it's really sought after. And so those sell pretty fast, especially if they are updated. Good question. Would like to hear your view of the Lake Lanier waterfront homes market, seeing more price reductions, days on market. Will this trend continue in your opinion? Skipper Dale. I like that name. I do think this is going to continue until the spring market of next year. So looking ahead, we're anticipating interest rates to continue to fall, and we'll look at some more data that's going to show that. And the lake market this year has really taken a hit. And my suspicion is that most lake homes require a sense of compromise because many lake houses are not renovated. Usually they're quirky. Usually you're kind of deciding what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not willing to compromise on in terms of location, walk to the dock, depth of the water, all the things. And then you have the house. And so a lot of our lake houses here, they're homes that were built in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and they need some renovation. They need a lot of help. And so they're already at a higher price point, and then you have to come on top of it looking at spending $100,000, $200,000 to renovate it or to make it how you would want to live in it. And there's just, at this time period with high interest rates, there's not a whole lot of buyers in that market right now that are willing to do that. And or if you're looking at this for a secondary home, we're seeing a cool down in the secondary home market. So those two factors to me are contributing to why homes are sitting on the market longer. If a seller is not willing to do any updates to the house, the only tool that they have available to them is to lower the price. So yes, I'm seeing the same thing here. Houses that normally would have sold, and I say normally, like going back to 21, 22, houses that would have sold like in a week, these homes are sitting on the market for 45, 60 days. And so again, it's a great time for you to be able to negotiate because some of these sellers, they're still thinking about the prices that their friends got in 2021 and 2022, and it's just not possible right now. But I do think you have a very unique opportunity to capture what's currently happening if you are in the market for a lake house, because I expect the demand to pick back up a little bit as we move into the spring of next year. The best time to buy a lake house is in the winter because you can't really enjoy a lake house, right? But a lot of people get the idea of like, oh, what would be great is if we had a lake house this summer. And, people get that idea when the weather starts getting warmer. So it's a great idea to have here in the fall and winter. Did I address whether or not the market bottoms? Yeah, don't know if I exactly came out and shared that. One of the things that we looked at was that homes are spending longer on the market. Homes are selling for less of their original asking price, and it's becoming a little bit more balanced towards a buyer's market versus a seller's market, kind of across the board. But let's get into talking about what's ahead because I think that's important to answer your question. So okay. All right, so here's what we are seeing in today's market. And this is not only nationally, but I am seeing this here locally as well, talking to a lot of great agents in the market. Homes are sitting on the market longer. Now, these are stats from a national level, but we looked at graphs earlier that kind of showed in Alpharetta, Cumming, Gainesville, homes are spending longer on the market compared to last year. Sellers are receiving fewer offers. That is true. And fewer buyers are waiving inspections. I haven't waived an inspection for a buyer in more than a year. And I say waiving an inspection. It's not like I have that decision-making factor ability for my buyers, but in my consultation with buyers to be competitive and or to offer terms that are attractive to not only the seller, but also get the buyer to what they want. There is no expectation here that we are waiving inspections or having to do that. So I would say on a national level, it's kind of a funny thing. And yet here it's not really a thing anymore. So one thing to know though, is that you just have a little bit more bargaining power as a buyer in today's market than what we have had in the past couple of years. So when we also look at kind of why this isn't exactly a crash, if we look at existing home supply, if we go back to the last time there was a crash, back then there was a 10-month supply of inventory. Now there's on average in the country about a 4-month supply. This does track with what we're seeing here locally, between 3 to 4 months, depending upon the area. Back then we had a ton of new built homes and a ton of foreclosures. And right now there's still just not enough homes to meet the overall demand that we need in the market. So when we also take a look at what's going to happen with mortgage rates, great news, right? So if you look at this is what the different various economic institutions dealing with mortgages and stuff like that, how they are predicting that mortgage rates are going to go throughout fourth quarter of 2025. You can see we're getting down to the fives, high fives by the end of next year. And right now we're hovering kind of like in the mid to low sixes. So a little bit of a drop, but not like a drastic amount of drop. So the conversation that I'm having with buyers right now is that if we go back and we look at, let me add this here. So let's look at closed sales, right? That's not a great graph. Okay. Trying to get back to the graph that I showed that kind of had like the ups and downs, right? So this is kind of the graph that we see of seasonality in the real estate market. So it's going up and it's going down. And this is kind of following the spring peak, kind of peaking at summer, and then it dips, and then it comes back again. When we come back to this, when we start climbing again in January, February, March of next year, and as we're seeing interest rates are slowly falling in the first quarter of next year, and all of these buyers that have been on the sidelines thinking like, yes, I want to buy a house. When is the right time? I'm trying to find out when is a good time for me to buy. And they see that mortgage rates started falling in August of 2024. And here it is, January of 2025, February of 2025, and they're still falling slowly, but they're still falling. They're going to say, yes, let's go out and buy a house this spring. And the spring market is going to be much different, I feel like, than what the spring market was this past year. Meaning, I think there's going to be a lot more buyers that are wanting to buy a house because everyone's kind of, we're through the election. Everyone's coming around to the fact that interest rates are not going to get back down into fours anytime soon. Home prices are not falling. The market's not crashing. They're still slowly increasing, which let's take a look at what we're predicting there. So we're predicting that there's going to be more homes that are sold next year than this year, which tracks with what we're anticipating because of the interest rates coming down. And we're predicting that home prices are still going to be more expensive next year than they were this year. You can see that there's two different economists, predicting that home prices are going to rise on average 4% compared to this year. Some are predicting in the 3%. If we take that on average, so let's just say 2.5%. I will say that with the with the higher mortgage rates this year, home prices in the metro Atlanta area are up 5% still compared to last year. So we take all of this together, and what you're getting is all great economic indicators that it's still a great time to buy and home prices are not coming down. Therefore, if we want to buy a house, we got to get after it and we got to buy. Now is the best time that you have, if you have the availability of timing, to negotiate a great deal on a house. And I say a great deal, it's all relative. So let's take this with a grain of salt because it's not like, we're buying a $500,000 house for $400,000. That's not happening. But what is happening is that seller took that $500,000 house. They maybe priced it at $525,000. Then they brought it down to $500,000. Now we're getting offers. Maybe they turned down a $500,000 offer because they thought they could get a little bit more. It's been some more time on the market. And now here you come along and you offer $485,000. And they come back at $490,000 and you say, okay, that's fair. So now you've gotten that $500,000 house at $590,000. If we took that same $500,000 house and we are looking at the spring market, we may be in a situation again where that $500,000 house is selling for 510, 515 because there's competition. So the great position that you have as a buyer is that you can negotiate a lower sales price. You can negotiate seller pay closing costs. You can negotiate much better terms for yourself. And you have the ability to refinance into a lower mortgage rate still in next year whenever those rates continue to come back down. So you've got the best of both worlds. You've locked in a better price because we can never go back and change the price that we paid for the house. We can always change what the interest rate is by refinancing into something better. There's a lot of great lenders that right now are offering a free refinance within the next 12 to 18 months because the mortgage industry knows that you're going to refinance. They want to keep that business. They don't want you going to somebody else and refinancing. So a lot of great mortgage lenders are offering that right now. So I think that essentially, yes, we're kind of getting to the bottom of where you can negotiate the best deal that's probably giving you the most bargaining power that you're going to have in this last quarter of this year, maybe January of next year before things take off again. So great question. I've been talking a lot. So if y'all have any questions, let me know in the comments. I see a couple that we need to get to here. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do that. You get notified every single week. We put out a brand new video educating you on what is happening here in the Metro Atlanta market, towns that you need to know about, new developments that are happening, and coming live to you twice a month, educating you and answering your questions and having a really, really great discussion. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. If you know someone that is thinking about making a move to Georgia that needs to know about us, make sure you share this with them as well. Obviously, if you're thinking about making a move here to Georgia, I would love to be your real estate agent. So you can find my contact information in the description here of this video. Do not ask me. Ask me. Hi, is Beaufort a good place to buy for a town home near the Mall of Georgia? What is the appraisal going forward and rentals in that area? Please let me know. So a tricky thing with townhouses are that they can make great rental properties because your maintenance overall is a little bit less. And usually you can get a better price for the house or more house for the price. The location is going to be good, especially there, Beaufort, Mall of Georgia area. The challenge, though, with townhouses is that a lot of these communities, the HOA has restrictions on whether or not you can rent out the townhouse. Some communities will just say no rentals are allowed whatsoever. Other communities will say we allow rentals, but only 20% of the homes in here can be rentals. Oftentimes, those communities are already at capacity and they have wait lists. So it's a little bit tricky trying to or having the ability to find townhomes that can be rentals, and yet they're out there. So we can do that. And yeah, so in my opinion, I definitely think that townhouses are a good option for rentals. Just know, though, that your home price appreciation on a townhouse is going to be a little bit slower than a single family home rental. So all things being equal, if you had the ability to afford one or the other, I would always say a single family home is going to be the way to go. Do I think it's a good idea for a rental property investment? Yes. And here's why. Unfortunately, the way that our real estate market is heading, especially here in the Metro Atlanta area, is we are going to face a housing crisis in the sense that it's getting to the point where it's going to be incredibly hard for a traditional home buyer or would-be home buyer to buy their first house because the home prices have just gotten so expensive. Wages aren't keeping up with home prices. So many homes here in the Metro Atlanta area over the past 4 years have been purchased by big, large investment companies, turning them into rentals. And those were typically the first-time home buyer houses, kind of priced between $200,000, $300,000. Those houses are gone and they're never coming back to the market. These big investment companies, they are holding on to these houses forever. They're never going to be for sale again. Or if they do come for sale, they're going to sell 100 of them at a time to another investor. So a couple of years ago, if you were a first-time home buyer and you said, my budget was $250, I want to buy a house, I would be like, great, let's go house shopping. Here's 7 houses that we can see that might fit what you're looking for. Today, you really can't buy a house under $350 in the metro Atlanta area. Now, you can, and yet it's going to need a lot of work. Most first-time home buyers don't have the type of capital or investment to make in that type of home that needs a lot of work. So rentals are always going to be in huge demand here in the metro Atlanta area. If you look around, you'll see apartment buildings going up everywhere. And that's just because there's not enough resale houses or new construction homes here to meet the demand. And even if we could meet that demand, there's still going to be a large portion of the population that may not ever be able to afford to buy their house. So they're going to be stuck renting. It's unfortunate. I wish there was a better solution to that, but the benefit for you as an investor, as an owner, a rental property owner, is that you're serving a need, but then you're also, benefiting from that as well. Lake houses could be good rentals. You may find more profitability in being an Airbnb, but yet there's a lot more headache that comes with that. One thing that you need to know, especially if you're thinking about making a lake property into an Airbnb, is you really want to pay attention to where on Lake Lanier you are looking for that house. Forsyth County, which is where Cumming is located, does not allow short-term rentals. And if you go on Airbnb or VRBO, you'll see plenty of lake houses that are advertised on there. They're breaking the law or the local ordinances. However, Hall County and Gwinnett County, so Buford, there's a small part of Buford that is on Lake Lanier. They do offer the ability to have a short-term rental, fairly easy process. So just keep that in mind if you want to have a rental property on the lake. You also have to keep in mind there's a little bit extra liability that comes with a lake house because you're dealing with mostly a dock and boats and all that kind of thing. So a little bit of extra things to keep in mind. But if you are buying this as a second house, I think an Airbnb could be a great way to go about it, because then you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can use it and make money off of it. Dallas and Ackworth can be good. One thing just to note is, so it's going to be more affordable in those areas, or especially in the Dallas area, but there's not a ton of growth and development happening in Dallas. There's not a ton of jobs out there in that area, but there's always going to be a market for rentals. So good thing to think about. Thinking about relocating to South Georgia, Locust Grove. Can you do a video of South Georgia? Frank, I love that question because Locust Grove is just really south of Atlanta, not South Georgia. So as someone that grew up in South Georgia, we would consider South Georgia anything south of Macon, or if you do, some people will refer to that as the Gnat line. So anything south of the Gnat line, and it's an imaginary line. It's called the fall line. Don't ask me why it's called the fall line. I'm sure there's something, and I'll come back to you next time with a better explanation. But the gnats are in South Georgia below that fall line, the Gnat line. And kind of like once you get above Macon, you don't really have the gnats. So, but yes, South Georgia is very affordable. Not a ton of job opportunities. So it kind of depends on what you want to do and what you're looking for. But I do have a great video here on the channel called North Georgia versus South Georgia. And we're going to be making another video here soon going into more about that for you. So great question. But south of Atlanta in that Locust Grove area, Stockbridge, Noonan, Peachtree City, it's growing. And so there's a big movie industry business down there. A lot of big movie studios are down there. Airport's a big job hub down in south of Atlanta. So definitely think it's a good place to explore if that type of area is what you're looking for. Would it be cheaper to buy unrestricted land and have your home built? Great question. And after this video repost, if you'll go back, we talked quite at length about building a house and how um, in some ways it could be cheaper, but in a lot of ways it's not because of the expense of the land. If you are open to more rural areas, it could be a very, very great option for you. Um, Covington and Conyers, a little bit of a smaller area, charming, and it's growing slightly, but not to the development or the level that kind of like the North Metro Atlanta area is. So really, when you're comparing North Metro to South Metro, um, in my opinion, it just kind of feels like night and day difference. And it's definitely one of those areas where, give it 10 years and I'm sure it's going to look drastically different, just like all of the towns here in North Metro Atlanta area look a lot different than what they did 10 years ago. I think at the end of the day, you can't really go wrong getting into the real estate market here anywhere in the Metro Atlanta area. It just depends on you personally, what you like day in and day out, conveniences that you want to be close to, stores that you like to go to, all those types of things, and kind of looking around, seeing what's available there. Jay Lee, I am with you. No, not really. I am against big, huge corporations coming in and buying up all of these houses. I'm not against smaller investors, maybe like yourself, who just wants to own a property for a rental property, things like that. A lot of neighborhoods here in the Metro Atlanta area over the past couple of years have changed their HOA covenants, limiting investor-owned homes in neighborhoods to only one home per investor. So a great neighborhood here in Flowery Branch, Sterling on the Lake, that was a neighborhood where in 2020 and 2021, a few companies came in and bought quite a few houses. And when I say quite a few, like I think one investment company owned 15 houses in this neighborhood. And it was a big neighborhood. So, you're probably talking about 15 out of 1,500 homes. And the HOA banded together and they said, hey, we don't want these big, huge investment companies owning a lot of real estate in our neighborhood. So they gathered together as an HOA. They changed the covenants to introduce that new rule. So that investor had to sell all of their houses that they owned except for one. And there was a lot of houses that came on the market there in Sterling on the Lake last year as a result of that rules change. So it was a good thing in the sense that, homeowners kind of fought back against that. But that is something that homeowners on a local level can change based on their HOA guidelines. And there's a lot of HOAs that have done that. What cities have the most duplex or triplex? Haven't seen many of them on the market. That's a good question. And I should do some research on that because just in general, we don't have hardly many duplex or triplexes around here. And I think it's got to be based on some sort of city or county ordinances that a lot of these municipalities have put into place. If you do have multifamily living situations, mostly it's going to be townhome communities and apartment complexes. Very rarely will you see a duplex or a triplex for sale, especially here in kind of like these North Metro Atlanta areas. I've got to think that it's got to be because they don't allow them to be built. You'll see a lot of older duplex and triplexes kind of closer into the city, Lawrenceville, Snellville, those types of areas. And oftentimes they need a lot of work. But yeah, I'll have to look into that. All my renters today, y'all have got lots of great questions. Sugar Hill or Buford, which city to choose for renting? You can't go wrong. So essentially, Sugar Hill is so tiny. A lot of times you just drive through Sugar Hill and you never even know. You just think you're in Buford and you're just going to Swanee. So in terms of, it's just like going a mile down the road. I don't think one is better than the other in terms of that. If you have the opportunity to buy a house located within Buford City School District, that is something that I would go after. Beaufort City Schools are one of the top ranked school districts here in the state of Georgia. They always go for a premium. You're going to be able to rent a house in the Beaufort City School District for more than what you will be able to in any other local little municipality, but you're going to pay more for that house because it's in Beaufort City Schools. So it's a little bit of a wash, but I think it's a great idea for investment. Lone One coming in with the facts. Thank you. Fall line is where the Piedmont and coastal plains meet, rivers that flow southward to the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you. That is what the fall line is, and that is the gnat line. And I'm sure it's because up in the Piedmont, the weather is not conducive to gnats. Thank goodness. We lived in Brunswick, Georgia before we moved here to Gainesville, and I grew up in South Georgia in Valdosta. So we lived in a little tiny town called Douglas, Georgia, and it's in Coffee County. I thought I had moved to like the boonies whenever my husband and I got married, and that's where his first job was, which happened to be where he grew up, and that's where he wanted to live. And so I told him, I was like, I will live here for 1 year and that's it. Ended up being 3. So when he got a job opportunity over in Brunswick, I was like, yes, let's go. We're going to Brunswick. Brunswick is on the coast of Georgia in between Savannah and Jacksonville, kind of like equal distance, an hour either direction. So I thought it was going to be great living in Brunswick. And don't get me wrong, it was great. But like the very first week we were there sitting outside, I think it was like this time of year, nice weather, felt good to be outside. And then all of a sudden I just felt something biting me everywhere. And I could not see what was biting me. Y'all, they were called sand gnats, and sand gnats are a different type of gnat that lives on the coast of Georgia, and they bite you and you can't see them. It was like a whole level of torture that I just didn't know existed. And it felt like they were always out whenever it felt really good outside. So there's gnats everywhere in Georgia, except for above the gnat line, which is where I choose to live. When do the wineries close for the winter? Fun fact, Jane, they do not close. They don't look as pretty in the winter, but they hardly ever close. I think they might have shortened hours or days, but they don't close. So you can get your drink on any time of year. There are some great wineries in the Dahlonega area, Blue Ridge, some really great places that are from wherever you're here in North Metro Atlanta area, about an hour away, that you can check out. So they make for fun little day trips. Dahlonega is fun to go to for a day. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for joining me tonight. It was fun catching you up on everything that's happening here in the real estate market. If you are thinking about making a move here to the Metro Atlanta area, again, I'd love to be your real estate agent. Let's connect, get on a call together, and kind of figure out a good strategy for you and your family and see if we would be a good fit working with each other. If you haven't liked and subscribed, make sure you do that, because we are coming with you great videos every single Monday. And of course, we go live twice a month here answering all of your questions. So make sure you subscribe, and I will see y'all next week.